Hi everyone, today we are going to be starting to talk about factoring polynomials. We will carry this over into a second day and talk about some of the methods next time. So right here at the beginning, I would like to ask you to go ahead and pause the video and write down all of these methods of factoring information so that we can take a look at it and you can listen rather than scrambling to write while we do so. So pause the video and come back here when you're done. Okay, so let's go over the methods of factoring. Some of these we have seen before and some of them will be new to you today. The first method of factoring is pulling out a greatest common factor. We saw this back in the last chapter when we did factoring of quadratics. Typically that factor was just a number, but now we are going to be looking at numbers, coefficients, and we're going to be looking at variables. And we also can give this GCF a little more specific name. We're going to call it a monomial factor because it's going to be a single term, so monomial factor. Remember that we will always look for a greatest common factor before we do anything else to try and factor a function. Next is quadratic form, and you're going to look for that when we have three terms, just like we did in our chapter on quadratics last 6 weeks. Remember that whenever something takes a quadratic form, there are several methods that we could use for factoring. One of those is if we have an a value of 1, we just look for the two numbers that will multiply to be our c value and add to be our b value, and those will be our factors. Another method was guess and check if we had an a value greater than 1. So we'll be utilizing those today as well. And then finally, difference of two squares. If we have something in the form of a perfect square minus another perfect square, then we could take the square root of each of those and write our factors as just putting a in the front, b in the back, a positive on one, and a negative on the other. And we learned that the same time that we learned our guess and check method, and it kept us from having to guess and check in some cases. So that's a quick method. Next time, we will talk about difference of two cubes and sum of two cubes, as well as grouping. Notice this asterisk here. Difference of two squares is a thing. Difference and sum of cubes is a thing, but there is no such thing as factoring a sum of two squares, something in this form, a perfect square plus a perfect square. So if we run into something like that, it's not factorable.